Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome back to some more Planet Zoo. First of all, before we get really started on this video, a couple of announcements. Thank you so much for the awesome feedback and welcome back. On the last video was the first one we've done in a little while, the first proper Planet Zoo video we've done in even longer, and it was really great to see you all there with sort of welcoming arms as I've had to take a little bit of a break from YouTube, but back now and working back up to sort of full-time video releases. This one, in fact, was actually meant to be the next day. Like, the plan was to come back and hit the ground running and come back with some daily content. But, you know, life gets in the way, and perhaps it's me letting life get in the way, I don't know. But the day after that first video, actually no, the day that first video went out, Xander, my son, fell off the couch and ended up needing to go to the emergency room and have some stitches. He's absolutely fine. You know, he's 4 years old, so he bounces at that age, but he had to go, and he was there for most of the day, unfortunately. What was quite cool though was they gave him this treatment that was, it's still in trials. He was part of the trial test for it, and it's basically a very light sedative that they can give to kids nasally now to help them with stuff like this, basically, where they need a few stitches, and it's quite anxiety inducing for young kids, but it's maybe not really that. It's too little to knock them out with an anesthetic, you know. So they get this thing where just sort of they take a nasal spray and it makes them super dozy, and then they can give them their stitches. So he got that. It did mean that the process took quite a bit longer because they had to monitor him for a bit afterwards. But at the end of it, they gave him $50 to go and buy some Lego, so he was quite happy. So that was good. So, but unfortunately, because of that, he's been at home, not being able to do a lot of the activities he normally does. So I just haven't had the time to sit down and get this video finished. Couple that with a short bout of homeschooling here in Ontario. We're currently in a modified kind of lockdown, so he's currently at home in the weekdays. So again, I'm losing those sort of afternoon hours that I would normally get to work on this kind of stuff. But you know, we make these things work. We do the best we can. Again, I will always say this, that whilst everyone is being affected by the pandemic, I am certainly nowhere near sort of affected as a lot of people are, so I will more than take my blessings and realise that, you know what, having the kid at home and not getting so much work done is a very small price to pay compared to a lot of people have had to go through. So anyway, that's why the video is a little bit late. It's not that I, you know, for any other reason than I just haven't been able to sit down and get it finished. It was just slightly poor timing off Xander dive-bombing himself off the sofa. Anyway, what are we doing today? We're building a Madagascan house. This is very heavily based on a Madagascan house in a zoo that I have closed the window of. Ah, look at me, absolute amateur after so long away. Madagascar. Yeah, I'm googling it. I'm googling it as we record the video. It was in a zoo. I can't remember what I was googling. I think I was looking for a tortoise. There it is. I was looking for a tortoise habitat, and I found this one. There we go. It's Lehigh Valley Zoo, which is in a place. Because this is a local newspaper that I found, so let's have a look for Lehigh. We'll Google this as we go, folks. It's not a problem, honestly. Absolute pro. It's in Schnecksville, PA. That doesn't sound like a real place, but let's pretend that it is. Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania. Lehigh Valley Zoo in Pennsylvania has a grand opening of this place due in spring of this year. I mean, how up to date that is, I have no idea, because it feels like everything is getting postponed recently. But they have this awesome. And I say awesome, as far as like some of the builds go, it's actually quite small and simple, but that's exactly the kind of thing we're looking for in this zoo. So I think it works perfectly. Somebody even commented saying, with the trend for really wacky and crazy builds in Planet Zoo YouTube videos now, which often happens as a game progresses in its development, people kind of feel like they've done all the regular stuff, so they start to do wacky stuff. It is nice to find something like this that is a little bit more based in reality, although I do not purport to be any sort of any knowledgeable on zoos at all. I just kind of try and build stuff that looks genuine and looks sort of small scale and what have you. So that's what this is. And the thing that really drew me to this is the fact that it's a mixed habitat and it has multiple animals in it. So it has a giant tortoise and it has a set of lemurs, the white ruffled lemurs, I believe it is, the ones we ended up picking. Lemurs are, of course, native to Madagascar exclusively. There's about 30 different types of lemur in Madagascar. The giant turtle that's native to Madagascar, there's a couple. The one I'm looking at here is the big-headed turtle. Which is incredibly endangered. It's actually considered critically endangered, and it's considered to be the most evolutionary distinct, globally endangered reptile. So I thought it'd be a nice thing to sort of have a space here for them. Excuse me for knocking the microphone. I'm an absolute amateur. But yes, the Madagascan big-headed turtle is not in the game currently, so it is the part of the Madagascan big-headed turtle is played by a giant, I think it's just called the giant Galapagos turtle here, I think. And that is the deliberate mistake that you can spot in this video, is that for some reason I just totally lost what I was doing and ended up making this place to be called Galapagos House rather than Madagascan House. Here I'm having to just shrink down the back of the gift shop here to fit all this in. There's nothing in there. That was literally just a building to sort of suggest a small stock room. So now it's a smaller stock room. Really wanted to get this space in here as close to the original one there at Lehigh Valley. But yeah, it's a mixed habitat, which is something I don't think I've really done before. I mean, I may have done in the past, maybe in the beta or in the early days of the game. It's certainly something I can't remember doing recently, but it is something that zoos seem to do a lot more than I've perhaps seen people do in Planet Zoo. And I think it might be because the limitations of the game. There aren't that many animals that are more than happy to be in with other animals, apart from obviously a lot of the savannah animals can go together really well. So zebras and giraffes and that sort of stuff will happily fit together. But otherwise, maybe it's just people aren't being that adventurous with trying them, because these guys, the tortoise and the lemurs, are more than happy to hang out. I do have animal welfare turned off in this, to be honest with you, mainly for space reasons, because I want to build some smaller, more realistic sized habitats here, and the game recommends they build lots larger ones, which I'm all for in real life. Give animals as much space as we possibly can, but this zoo and my playstyle is meant to be a mirror of the real world and not necessarily the ideal of the real world. So oftentimes, especially in older habitats and older exhibits and older zoos, they maybe don't quite have the sort of size space they should. So that's the main reason I've turned off animal welfare. But I still try and use the right planting, the right everything else, and as far as I can tell, going through the animals at the end here, the tortoise and the few lemurs that we add, don't have any sort of problem with each other. I think personally, if I was a tortoise, just sort of plodding around my day-to-day life and there was lemurs constantly bouncing off me, I'd probably be a little pissed off. But as far as the game is concerned, and apparently real life, as Lehigh Valley I sure have done their research, it's actually perfectly acceptable. So we're making this up as to be a Madagascan exhibit, which is why it's majority. Why am I just making up words? Why it is majority. What the hell is the word I'm trying to say? Why it is mostly indoors with a smaller outdoor area, because here, if this was a British zoo, let's be honest, we don't have the nice weather for much in the UK, although it is getting nicer. I keep seeing that you're getting nice summers. Global warming for you, I suppose. But yeah, so mostly indoors here, and there would be like a gate that can get closed on this smaller outdoor area. The majority of the space here for the animals are indoors. So here we go. Most of the structure is done now. We throw the animals down as an easy way of being able to make sure that we've got the sort of the terrain and the substrate correct. We keep it really light foliage because there isn't that much space anyway, and obviously anything that tortoise can get its hands on or its beak on or whatever, it's gonna scoff. So we don't want to keep it really light foliage, so it's not too much of a problem. Didn't really have any major problems with this build. You know, we've used this circular build method a few times now. There isn't really a suitable mesh piece for doing a meshed roof in that octagonal shape that I would like to have done, but I feel like that wooden beam kind of gives you the idea of what we're going for there. A small triangular mesh piece would be awesome, although it would be difficult to make it work. Maybe even just like a line of mesh, you know, like a 1 meter, a 2 meter, and a 4 meter line of mesh would be awesome, because then, you know, the weirdos like me could sit and spend our time building custom mesh shapes, and I would have no problem with that. The other side I went back on. I feel like this was sort of like 4 or 5 hours into the build at this point, and I got crazy lazy with the roof here. So I was like, yeah, just use that, and that will do. I mean, you'll see me throw it down here, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And then, like, the next morning, I looked at it, and I was like, Pastor John T, what are you doing? That's horrific. So we do go back and fix that later on, don't worry. But I do keep this flat roof here. I quite like flat roofs. I notice a lot of zoo buildings have flat roofs because they seem to do well for ventilation and what have you. They're cheaper to put ventilation into with flat roofs, I think. It may well be a problem when it comes to irrigation, you know, making sure water runs off them properly. But yeah, for the most part, you do see a lot of flat roof buildings in zoos, so I try and keep that as much as I can. We're doing some interior climbing here. I'll be honest with you, the lemurs do not climb in this place at all, so I'm afraid. Apart from those beams that I've put along the back, 1 or 2 of the lemurs did try and climb those and clip through the wall and start running around, so those beams do come off in a moment. But as far as the climbing structure goes, they just don't use it. Again, we talked about this in the last episode, I think, with the meerkats. Unless the climbing structure is like needed for them to get somewhere, they're just not particularly interested in it. So here, there we go. Look, you can see him outside on the top of the on the top of the keeper's hut there. So we get rid of all of that, and it seems to stop the problem, which is good. We just have to neaten up that door. Yeah, not a major issue there. Here we go. I've come to my senses, and I end up fixing this roof, and instead we use a tiny little Australian piece, I think it is. And we do like a wood tile that kind of fits in more with the wooden structure of the other side, and just looks better. It looks nicer to have that slight curve on it without those sort of flat pieces sort of chopping into each other. Yeah, much nicer to look at. Glad I went back and did it. So yeah, you spot the deliberate mistake in a moment. We're going to put a sign on the front that does say Galapagos House. There are no lemurs in the Galapagos. There are giant turtles, and there's where I got mixed up. So that will be. I didn't even notice it in the glamour shots that you're going to see in a moment. So unfortunately, for this episode, the video will say Galapagos House, but it will get changed. Do not fear. At this point, I would love to say a huge thank you to Dahlia. Dahlia is Dahlia or Dahlia, I don't know. I've only ever seen it written down. I've not actually spoke to her in person. She's the influencer manager at Frontier. She does an incredible job. And mainly because after I put that first video out, after, like I say, 8 months away from YouTube, nearly a year away from Planet Zoo, by the end of that day, I had a message in my Twitter account from Dahlia saying, "Hey John T, great to see you back in Planet Zoo. Looks like you're missing a few of the DLC packs. Here's codes for them." Like, with no prompting from me at all, she just came as an absolute hero and kind of filled in the gaps that I had, which were the 2 animal packs and the European pack. So I've got all of those now. Because of that, we will be definitely looking at a few of the European animals that are obviously going to fit really well into this zoo. And in the last episode, I did ask some of you to comment with what animal you would like to see, and there was a few people said badger. And a couple of people did say that, oh, you know, badger, but you have got a few smaller burrowing animals. But that doesn't matter. This is the kind of zoo that you're going to have lots of little, you know, I'll say what I used to say, the farty little animals that potter about and just go and sit around in a dirt pit. Like, they're the kind of animals that these smaller European zoos have in abundance, because they're easy to keep, but they're prevalent everywhere. You know, they're used to the natural climate and what have you. Galapagos House, look at me, the idiots. I even put a lemur there as well. Look, what an idiot past John T is. Future John T knows better. But yes, so I'm down for badgers. We will do badgers next time. I'm going to suddenly start researching badger habitats in zoos. I'm really glad that they went with the European badger. Oh, obviously it was a European set, but the European badger is crazy cute. I have seen North American badgers, and they look like they are trying to shiv you, whereas a European badger looks like it wants to invite you in for a cup of tea on the riverbank with Mr. Toad and Briar Rabbit or something. I don't know. There's some light foliage here around the outside. Again, I'm keeping the foliage very sort of planted. Just again, from a budgetary constraint, I want it to look like this kind of place is cared for, but they're not able to do anything really sort of crazy with the foliage. That's definitely something I wanted to look at. And here, the actual habitat at this point is finished. I'm just filling in a few of these, these green triangles you end up with when you're building the path everywhere. And again, keeping it super light, a plant and a little bit of shrubbery in these places. I've been watching a lot of Toves at the minute. Toves plays, awesome, really awesome Planet Zoo player, and is insane at the foliage stuff. Really goes to town with it. Does incredibly thick foliage, and it looks incredible. Honestly, really inspiring stuff. You should go and check it out. But it just doesn't seem right for this zoo to go crazy, really thick foliage. Unless there's areas where like the shrubbery has really sort of got away from them. Here I want to keep it really light. I want you to be able to see a lot of mulch. I want you to be able to see a lot of dirt and things as we move on. There we go, finishing off the area. This is actually moving into the red panda area now, which is obviously one of the newer parts of the zoo, very budget high. Definitely want to keep that mix of old and new as we move forward. It's definitely something I want to try and really sort of get across with this zoo, that it's always in flux. There's older bits, there's newer bits. There you go, a couple of glamour shots there of Galapagos House. What an idiot. That will be changed to Madagascan House in the next episode. And then, yes, we'll do badgers. I'm going to go and research all about the badgers. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, all of that YouTube jizz that I'm not really fussed on at the moment. But, it does help, so I appreciate it. Love you all to bits. Until the next one, be good.